All right, before I start talking about the pit, I'm gonna just say I've been lifting a lot and I have not been uploading the videos. So this is from over a month ago and I'm like 10 workouts behind. So I'm just gonna have to start uploading like crazy. My bad, guys. So The Pit is a TV show on HBO Max, and it's about an emergency department in Pittsburgh, and it covers this fictitious hospital. It's a teaching hospital, so they have medical students, residents, and the attending doctor there, and it's making the rounds on pretty much like the all the ER people and the medical community in general. A lot of healthcare providers are really enjoying this show because it's very accurate. And I gave it a watch. I watched it with my mom, who is a ER physician. And she was running through all these cases with me and explaining pretty much everything that they're doing. I also work in the emergency department too, so I really understand what's going on too. But like the pharmacology stuff is pretty much above my head, and it's amazing. I really enjoy not just the how like the real aspects of it, um, but also it really humanizes a lot of the ER characters. I think that the main character still having to deal with the trauma of COVID. That's kind of like one of the longer themes. One of like the main character, he's really struggling coming back from the pandemic. And I think that the COVID trauma is very real. I talked about it a lot in a lot of my other videos. And I don't, I think I identify with that a lot. I don't have like the same level. I wasn't an ER doctor during that time, but I still remember very vividly on the ambulance, going from ICU to ICU. And it just felt like I was on the moon. That's the only way I can really describe it. It was white plastic everywhere, and everybody's in spacesuits. Um, and when they flash back to those scenes of the pandemic, it really like, it felt so, I felt like the claustrophobia that I had when I was in my own spacesuit going around on all these patients on ventilators. I mean, it really did feel like you're on the moon, and but not nearly as fun. So I really like a lot of the humanizing aspects of the show, how it really humanizes a lot of the characters, and I identify with a lot of them. Um, and the realism is about as good as, Hollywood can get. Of course, a lot of things are dramatized, but, it's a TV show. So I'm really, you give it a lot of leeway. But I really liked watching it with my mom and having her explain things to me, having her ask me questions, getting them right, getting them wrong. I think that was like a really nice experience. And watched all 7 episodes. I watched them all at once. And I'm going to probably see, because they come out every Wednesday, I'm probably going to go look right now if the 8th episode came out. I watched them over the course of like 2 days. But that's pretty much, that's what I wanted to say about The Pit. I'm not going to I was watching videos of like actual ER physicians going over it. And that content, it's an easy content mill, just doing ER doctor reacts to The Pit. But I just wanted to give my own little thoughts about like what I really thought about it. It's really making the rounds in the healthcare provider space. Everyone's really enjoying it. I suppose I should also mention some of the gripes that I do have with it. I always think that every single medical drama does this, but because it more or less only follows the doctors do everything in the hospital. So, of course, because it's a TV show and you have to give it dramatic liberties, the fact that the doctors are basically doing most of the stuff, the nurses are more or less on the side, but whenever the doctor does literally everything, like they're pushing all the meds and like transferring everyone, it's and that part's not as realistic. Of course, all the main characters are doctors, so you want the doctors doing everything. And the choreography is really good. I'm not going to take that away from them. It's very realistic to how it feels, especially when you're going from like patient to patient. There's, you just finish up doing a code on somebody, and then it's immediately next patient. You got to go on to the next one. One of the ER doctors that I will always remember at the last hospital I worked at, he always, like this very old man, I'm not very old, but he was definitely late 60s, early 70s. He would just bang on the table and just shout, next patient, next patient. And I do that all the time now as just a mannerism. Because that's exactly what it feels like. When you're just going from one patient to the other, that's probably the most realistic aspect of it. Also the waiting room. The waiting room, like looking like shit, that's also very realistic to the emergency department. They really get that part right. That chaotic feel of the waiting room. But when you're just going from like patient to patient, like it's very, very difficult. I will say another thing that's not very realistic is when they say like, oh, this patient's name, like Elaine, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to get an update on their blah, blah, blah. Like, we don't, this is something that we shouldn't do as healthcare providers, but we do more or less refer to patients by their bed. It's like, oh, bed 16 wants an update on their CT scan. So yeah, we do refer to patients, and they tell us, administration tells us, like, no, you shouldn't refer to patients just by their bed number. But that's like a very easy way for us to organize, at least for me, it's been a very easy way for me to keep track of which patients and where they are. Well, of course where they are, but like which patient it is. It really gives you that chaotic feel. And, it is, it's very realistic. I will say those things are very realistic. Just that the waiting room always cracks me up. The vibes are terrible in the waiting room, almost always. So yeah, that's all. I'll probably talk about the Pitt more, but I just wanted to mention that I love this show. All right, that's all.